Okay, this is the 100-120 class. This is Monday of week 1, which is April 3rd. And we're going to warm up with an admonition for the record. I am going to explain the purpose of a deposition. Let me review some of these matters for you so it will refresh your memory. I am going to be asking you questions about yourself and the accident of November of last year. My questions, your answers, any comments that your attorney desires to make will be taken down by the court reporter. She will later transcribe her notes into a booklet form like this. This is called your deposition booklet. We are going to give you these two booklets and ask you to read it and sign it. At that time, you are going to have the right to make any changes or corrections in it that you desire to make. Let me just say that if you do make any changes or corrections in the booklets, I, at the time of the arbitration proceedings of this matter, can point that out to the arbitrator that you testified one way and then changed your testimony. That could be personally embarrassing to you as well as detrimental to your case. So therefore, I ask you to listen to my questions here carefully today and to give me your best answers as you remember the facts to be. Now, if for any reason you do not hear a question or you do not understand a question, will you let me know, and I will be happy or more than happy to repeat it or rephrase it for you. If you answer a question here today, I am going to assume that you understood that question. Also, all the questions must be answered audibly. Gestures or nods of the head cannot be taken down by the court reporter. Please allow me to finish my question before you start your answer, because the court reporters can't take down two people talking at the same time. Now, do you understand that although we are meeting here informally in your attorney's office, that this proceeding is a judicial proceeding, and it is just like you were in open court before a judge? You have taken an oath to tell the truth, and you understand, do you not, that the penalties of perjury apply to this proceeding like any judicial proceeding? Do you know of any reason why your deposition cannot be taken at this time? Okay, this will be a motion to compel on the record. Your Honor, the complainant requests that the agency be compelled to respond to discovery and that the agency be sanctioned. Complainant's counsel filed a motion for sanctions and a request for a hearing, which was never responded to by the agency. Complainant's counsel received an acknowledgement order. Discovery was filed with the agency. The agency's response to discovery was due no later than August 21, 2011. To date, no response has been received. Furthermore, a good faith effort has been made to resolve this dispute. The agency's attorney has asserted that she did not receive any discovery request from the complainant. The agency has refused to provide any responses and has declined to provide any date that it will provide responses to discovery. Your Honor, the agency's failure to provide any responses to discovery is seriously hampering the complainant's ability to schedule depositions in this case and to, in a timely manner, complete discovery within the strict time limit deadlines contained in the court orders. Since the agency has failed to respond to discovery and has indisputably and unjustifiably delayed the process, we ask the court for a motion to compel responses to discovery and also ask that sanctions should be levied thereon. Okay, we're going to do a stipulation for the record. We are going to have the original document sent to Mr. Hale's office. And if that document reaches his office on or before October 10, he will agree to have the original signed, corrected, and that written notification can reach my office of the signature and the corrections by October 18 by the close of the business day. The original scan can be signed under penalty of perjury. Mr. Hale will keep custody of the original for all purposes and make the original transcript available at trial. If we do not have, by the expiration of the period stated, a signed original with corrections available, then an unsigned copy may be used in lieu of an original for all purposes. The reporter will be relieved of her duties under 2488 of the code. I guess that is about it. I can't think of anything else at this time. Oh yes, in the event that the transcript does not reach my office by October 18, and there is not time for the doctor to review the transcript before the aforementioned date, a copy of the transcript still may be used in lieu of the original if for any reason the original is not available. Okay, this is some literary material for the record. What my father wore embarrassed me as a young man. I wanted him to dress like a doctor or lawyer, but on those muggy mornings when he rose before dawn to fry eggs for my mother and me, he always dressed like my father. We lived in South Texas, and my father wore tattered jeans with the imprint of his pocket knife on the seat. He liked shirts that snapped more than those that buttoned and kept his pencils, cigars, glasses, wrenches, and screwdrivers in his breast pocket. My father's boots were government issued with steel toes that made them difficult to pull off his feet, which I sometimes did when he returned from repairing air conditioners, his job that also shamed me. But as a child, I crept into his closet and modeled his wardrobe in front of the mirror. My imagination transformed his shirts into the robes of kings and his belts into soldiers' holsters. I slept in his undershirts and relied on the scent of his collars to calm my fear of the dark. Within a few years, though, I started wishing my father would trade his denim for khaki and retire his boots for loafers. I stopped sleeping in his clothes and eventually began dreaming of another father. I blamed the way he dressed for my social failures. When boys bullied me, I thought they'd seen my father wearing his cowboy hat but no shirt while walking our dog. I felt that girls snickered at me because they'd glimpsed him mowing the grass in cutoffs and black boots. The girls' families paid men, and I believe better dressed ones, to landscape their lawns, while their fathers yachted in the bay wearing lemon yellow sweaters and expensive sandals. My father only bought 2 suits in his life. He preferred clothes that allowed him the freedom to shimmy under cars and squeeze behind broken Maytags where he felt most content. But the day before my parents' 20th anniversary, he and I went to Sears, and he tried on suits all afternoon. With each one, he stepped into the mirror, smiled and nodded, then asked about the price and reached for another. He probably tried 10 suits before we drove to a discount store and bought one without so much as approaching a fitting room. That night, my mother said she'd never seen a more handsome man. Later, though, he donned the same suit for my 8th grade awards banquet, and I wished he'd stayed home. After the ceremony, I'd been voted Mr. Citizenship of all things. He lauded my award and my character while changing into a faded red sweatsuit. He was stepping into the garage to wash a load of laundry when I asked what even at age 14 struck me as cruel and wrong. Why, I asked, don't you dress nice like my friends' fathers? He held me with his sad, shocked eyes and searched for an answer. Then before he disappeared into the garage and closed the door between us, my father said, I like my clothes. An hour later, my mother stormed into my room, slapped me hard across the face, and called me an ungrateful little twerp, a phrase that echoed in my head until they resumed speaking to me. In time, they forgave me, and as I matured, I realized that girls avoided me not because of my father, but because of his son. I realized that my mother had slapped me because my father could not, and it soon became clear that what he had really said that night was that there are things more important than clothes. He said he couldn't spend a nickel on himself because there were things I wanted. That night, without another word, my father had said, you're my son, and I sacrifice so your life will be better than mine. For my high school graduation, my father arrived in a suit he and my mother had purchased earlier that day. Somehow he seemed taller, more handsome and imposing, and when he passed the other fathers, they stepped out of his way. It wasn't the suit, of course, but the man. The doctors and lawyers recognized the confidence in his swagger, the pride in his eyes, and when they approached him, they did so with courtesy and respect. After we returned home, my father replaced the suit in the flimsy Sears garment bag, and I didn't see it again until his funeral. I don't know what he was wearing when he died, but he was working, so he was in clothes he liked, and that comforts me. My mother thought of burying him in the suit from Sears, but I convinced her otherwise and soon delivered a pair of old jeans, a flannel shirt, and his boots to the funeral home. On the morning of the services, I used his pocket knife to carve another hole in his felt so it wouldn't droop around my waist. Then I took the suit from Sears out of his closet and changed into it. Eventually, I mustered the courage to study myself in his mirror, where, with the exception of the suit, I appeared small and insignificant. Again, as in my childhood, the clothes draped over my scrawny frame. My father's scent wafted up and caressed my face, but it failed to console me. I was uncertain, not about my father's stature. I'd stopped being an ungrateful little twerp years before. No, I was uncertain about myself, my own stature, and I stood there for some time, facing myself in my father's mirror, weeping and trying to imagine, as I will for the rest of my life, the day I'll grow into my father's clothes. Okay, this will be some congressional warm-up for the record. Mr. President, as we begin the decade of the 90s, we can look back over the last few years with the realization that the world has seen is a transformation taking place in Eastern Europe. This change in government and lifestyles is nothing short of a miracle. The free world has watched while one man, Mikhail Gorbachev, has been at the helm, leading peoples and nations away from communism and toward a free economy. While espousing the communist doctrine, Gorbachev has also recognized the abundant advantages that exist in a capitalistic state. He has seen that democracy and the free market work in societies throughout the world. He has shocked his contemporaries and critics by voicing views and promulgating policies that literally shake the foundation of the government form of communism. The world has never seen anything like this before. Mikhail Gorbachev was raised in the communist way of life, trained to follow doctrine and dogma. He was tutored and schooled to carry on the traditions of Stalin and Lenin and Khrushchev. He was chosen by his successors as the man for the job. But Gorbachev chose another path when he came into power. He realized that the old ways were not working. Communism was killing the incentive of the Russian people to excel. The Soviet Union's economy was dying in front of his eyes. Gorbachev has taken his contemporaries by surprise. He has taken the world by surprise. The quiet revolution that he started has affected all of Eastern Europe. We have seen the Cold War peacefully deconstruct. The Berlin Wall has come tumbling down. Germany is now united. The Iron Curtain has crumbled. Europe is changing, and so are its people. They no longer want to be under the crush of a communist way of life. They want freedom of movement and freedom of thought. Gorbachev, as president of the Soviets, is a powerful and dynamic leader. Some people regard Gorbachev as a hero. He has challenged the political ideology of his nation. He has challenged the basic precepts of communism that have existed since the time of Stalin. By some groups, Gorbachev is regarded as dangerous. His thoughts and views are considered totally unacceptable by hardline communist leaders. With remarkable imagination, Gorbachev has embarked on a daring and irreversible course of action. He is attempting to transform a system of government that is destined to self-destruct. With controls and barriers and regulations that literally strangle the economy, Gorbachev has plotted another route for his nation. He wants to break down the old regime. He wants his nation to make way for a new Soviet Union made up of independent states.